So it turns out there's more to leadership than barking like a dog, and there's more to red pill than resentment. Welcome, Red Pill Mids Watch, Ryan. It's got a neat one here. You're gonna like it. It's another again. It's got all the hallmarks of like the classic post that you want to learn from the Married Red Pill with. The guy came in with his spiel, deleted his account, wandered off. No idea about the follow up on this stuff, but he kind of. I like to think it's because guys understood what they were doing, they got their advice, and then they just left. But I just know most of the time when you hear advice that requires you to look inside, become more self aware, you tend to run away from it because the typical standard thing is that narcissism hates people to attack the core identity. And that's a lot of what these things boil down to that. This is why, if you've ever wondered why some guys can get a lot of red pilled and relationship advice and apply it to their marriages, most guys can't because they don't want to win. They don't want to be happy. They don't want to be successful. They want to protect the identity. And in this case, their identity is the downtrodden husband with the harpy wife. She's evil and nothing else went right, but it's not your fault. So this one is, he calls it, should I stay or should I go? And he goes off with, I don't like being married. I'd be a lot happier if I were single. However, I'd like to save my marriage if I can, mainly because I want to sleep under the same roof as my kids every night. It's important for me to do what's best for them, even if that's not the super best, mega happiest choice for me. A small aside for this one, I cannot stand this human shield where guys throw their children in front of you to hide their own like emotional fragility. It's like nothing irritates me more than this because that kid's going to be coming and finding this place in 18 years because his life is messed. But we'll put that aside for now. His marriage is what he'd call cordial. 10 years married, 2 kids. Wife and him are pleasant, don't have sex as often as he'd like or as wild as he'd likes, but it's not a dead bedroom either. A lot of built up anger, a lot of resentment on both sides. The main cause has been career and money. He's got credentials and ability to make good money in one career, but spent many years doing something he actually enjoyed, which didn't pay as well and wasn't very stable. So his wife had to work, and while he doesn't think she feels entitled not to work, she has certainly complained relentlessly about every job she's ever had. I've recently taken a job that pays well in a field I don't like, but it was my decision, and I do think it was the right one. That decision allows his wife to work part-time going forward, and she seems pleased, I guess. We've come close to divorce before. 6 years ago, she and the kids went back to the hometown for a visit, and she told me she's not coming back. She said it was not an ultimatum, but that she couldn't keep living in these dire financial straits, and that he could stay and continue his career if he wanted. Ultimatum or not, she unilaterally moved the kids away from him. That was unacceptable. He resigned from his job, moved back to the hometown, took a good paying job that he hated, and he was seething with rage most of the time. And then a few months after that, he got involved in something. I'm assuming it means he cheated, but yeah, exchanging sexually explicit emails back and forth with another chick. We never met, no plans to do so, but it was cheating on some level. My wife discovered the emails were at the brink of divorce. Oh, geez. He's doing this over pen pals. The emotional affair. Oh, for crying out loud. At least get something if you're going to have these fights. Anyways, whatever. Counseling, as you can imagine, didn't help. We all had the same fights. Her bringing up this same affair or whenever there was a disagreement after 100 apologies, endless arguments, finally told her either divorce me or quit bringing it up, and she did. And there's been a sort of easy détente ever since. I guess I'm one of those alphas, sorta. Never been afraid to go my own way, but I've also never been able to square my internal mindset, confident, capable, independent, with being in a marriage of compromise, sacrifice, and getting along. So now I need some red pill guidance. Uncle died. Funeral's about 3 hours where we live. We're going to drive up there, spend the night, attend the funeral, drive back. We started packing, and my wife did her customary deal of ridiculous overpacking for herself and the kids. I've let her do this every trip we've taken, but now I decided this is stupid, and I'm tired of carrying all the extra luggage, so scale it down, 1 small bag for each person, babe. Prompted to fight, but I stayed calm and held firm. So she told me that I could pack the kids, since you seem to think that you're so much better than everyone else, and then I laughed and said, yeah, you're starting to catch on. then packed it myself and the kids, and we had everything together pretty quickly. We packed the car, started down the road. My wife kept making little snide comments about me under her breath, but not really. When I said I'd drive, she said, "That's right, gotta be in control." So a few miles down the road, stopped for food. One of the kids mentions he forgot his toothbrush. Wife said something like, "Oh, I thought everything else was packed by the expert." Didn't raise my voice, didn't touch her. She said something like, "Who do you think you are to talk to me this way? You think you're my father?" And then went off to the bathroom. So when she got back, she said, "If you leave town without me, you will come home to find the locks changed." I just laughed and went about the business of getting food for everybody. Got back in the car. I made a U-turn, headed back home. Her jaw dropped and she stared at me. "Where are you going?" I said, "Home." "I'm serious about what I said," she said. I'm like, "So am I." And then by the time we got home, she had announced that she's not getting out of the car and that she's going to be left behind. I got out to go inside, grabbed the toothbrush, came back to the car, told her she needed a promise that the fight was over and the comments would stop or we're not going to go anywhere. So she agreed, we went off, we basically were pleasant during the rest of the trip. However, since we're back, she's been cold and distant. I've ignored her for the most part, but this morning I told her that the threat to change the locks was unacceptable and I don't respond well to ultimatums. So she said that she's never had anyone talk to her so disrespectfully and condescendingly, and that every year or so I feel the need to assert my authority over her, and that she's not going to be bullied anymore. This is similar, that she always accuses me of manipulating and bullying her into things when I don't actually think I do. So I stayed calm, and when she finished ranting, I just said, "All right," and left. Since then, she sent me a couple of emails she's drafted over the weekend, repeating the same stuff and telling me how blindsided she was by my jerk-face behavior. I'm just interested to get some thoughts on this situation and the best way to proceed. I think we'd both be happier if we split up. Well, I mean, I would. Maybe she wouldn't. But I'm not sure that would be the best thing for the kids. So I need your help to take control. Couple of thoughts before we get into what we had mentioned at the time. There is so much to unpack from this. But the one thing I will say for sure is this is what happens when you give a guy the red pill who has no frame and no intention of getting it. There are so many good things happening here that he completely fumbles on. Like, for example, calling yourself an alpha is the most ridiculous thing. An emotional affair is ridiculous as well. Dude, if you feel the need to stray and you're just sending erotic emails with a paper trail on it to some other girl, then that's like the thirstiest thing I've ever seen. Like, if you're gonna cheat like a man. Don't be like ASL, like it's 1997's AIM Instant Messenger. That was just ridiculous. Obviously, he knows the marriage counselor thing wasn't good, but he's like, huge resentment. I've transformed. I'm charming. I'm good looking and in shape, but bored. I need something to do next. Another challenge to conquer. Please give it to me. Comes from so many things. Like, first off, I get it. He's doing, and I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm writing books and I'm streaming on YouTube, and my girl's doing her job, and I left my corporate stuff to come here. So, like, I get the sentiment, but the difference here is I made sure to make decisions for our life that financially that made sense, where this guy just didn't. And then they started getting into financial issues, and so he had to make the sacrifice for the family to take the job that he hated, mostly because she offered an ultimatum, but then couldn't take acceptability for it being an ultimatum. And then he gets resentful for her over it, and she gets resentful for him over this. And it's just like every chance he has where he does something and she defers to his leadership, he basically makes her regret it. And then he's constantly bringing it up, and she's constantly bringing her up, and he takes her so seriously. And then he lets her give all these little disrespectful things, but he takes it seriously. Like, the whole thing is just a mess. But enough of me rambling about this. I know it's a very simple, like, it sounds like a simple statement. Have frame, and these problems all go away. Have a cognizant idea of what you want to do with your life and lead the family and make decisions and then own them. If you decide to move back home and do the job, well, that's your decision. Zero resentment for it. If you're going to resent it, don't do it. Finally, and I cannot stress this enough for anybody who is a father now or is going to be a father, don't ever, in the history of ever, say that I hate my life, I hate my wife, I hate the things, but I'm staying together for the kids. Because right there, I'm like, you don't even love your children because you're using them as a meat shield. You're using your children to defend you against criticism. You're using them to describe your inability to make any steps towards your own happiness, any ability to handle your situation. And then you're trying to say like it's for their benefit. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry, but it's a good thing to say because I'm Canadian. There is no way that your kids are raised in that house with a guy who's that cowardly to accept his own emotions, wants, and self-improvement. There's no way a kid is raised for 18 years outside of that and doesn't have deep-seated issues growing up. Like, you're literally ruining your children's lives. There was a great quote by the last psychiatrist. He says, you can either be a good father or you can raise good kids. And if you don't know the difference, it's okay. They will. The idea being good father as the identity. You know, I tuck them in every night. It's always those symbols. It's never about actually being a good father. It's about what do good fathers do? Well, they tuck their kids at night. They read books. They make sure the kids, don't go on YouTube too much. Like all these little symbolic things. And then when it comes to actually having the kid raised well to be a functional adult, that goes by the wayside because it's all about saving the identity, not by actually raising good kids. But that's my rant on it. Next part here, Jack Ten of Hearts. So he caught on to the ultimatum line and the dire financial straits. He was like, so let me get this straight. Were you in dire financial straits? And who took on the burden of those finances? Who paid the bills? Who tried to budget? Who opened the mail from all the credit cards? If it was your wife, then this was a gross failure lead on your part. You can take a low-paying job as long as you're disciplined enough to make sure the money you do make provides for your family. If you're just bringing home meager paychecks and letting your wife deal with all the fallout, then that's just a bad combination. And then he goes to the part where the guy was talking about the wife's little snide comments. Oh, I bet you think you're better than everybody and all this stuff. It's like, look, you got an insubordinate first officer. She's insubordinate because she's been reporting to a drunk captain for years. Now the captain's all marching up and down the bridge telling everybody they're doing it wrong. So yeah, you're going to get shit tested like this until you consistently demonstrate stronger leadership. An aside on this, yes, and this is one thing I make sure to let everybody know when they're working on their relationships, is that if you've been in this state of quiet misery for any length of time, things will get worse before they get better. It's not because things aren't working. It's because people are stubborn. I always tell the story. My dog, it's the best analogy that you'll understand this with. My dog is just big enough, 17 pounds, Hitchens, Italian Grand. He can jump up onto the counter and swipe anything that's about 3 inches from the edge. So one time we left a loaf of bread over there. He swiped it down, ate a loaf of bread. Horribly sick from it, crazy. But he has never stopped. Every time we go out for a walk, he comes home, he runs straight to the kitchen, takes a jump up, looks for the loaf of bread. We have to make sure that everything is good every time. Not most of the time, not sometimes, not from now on, forever. And 99 times out of 100, we have never left anything that close to the counter, but there's always that one time. Maybe we were partying and hungover, maybe we were in a rush after work, maybe we had to go deal with emergency and we left something there. He always manages to steal something, and as long as that's the case, he's always going to check that counter. And so it's the same, the way I am a bad dog owner on leaving stuff close to the counter, so many husbands are bad husbands in that they try to lead, but they're not consistent. And then they always get more and more shit tests until they sort it out. So Jack's suggesting next is like, okay, try something less confrontational. You could have said, you know what, pack the necessities in a small bag, pack the useful but maybe not needed in another bag, and then we're just going to decide at the time whether to bring both bags or not. It's not a compromise, but it's more of a structure to his critique as opposed to like, fix this crap and then, swatting something out of the way. Or just pack yourself a small bag. We'll probably leave some stuff behind. I've budgeted some money on the trip to account for this, which I'm surprised he never thought of that. Like for something like a toothbrush, just stop at a CVS, pick up a toothbrush. It's like $2, you'll be fine. But instead he has to drive all the way home and create this giant melodrama over it, right? So these are the type of orders you need to give until your wife realizes there's a strong and capable captain at the helm. They're still orders, but they also provide guidance. When you get a "you're doing it wrong" shit test, the correct response is rarely to say no and go do it for them. Because now it's no longer about getting the job done. It's about who's going to screw up the job so the other person can gloat. Like, does that sound like effective leadership to you? And Jack never did take time in the military, but this is exactly what you're taught. I remember this in my leadership course. It's like, if you direct somebody and they don't do it right, chances are you never gave them the tools. And this is leadership 101. You provide the guidance, you give somebody the tools to act according to their abilities and training to achieve what you need them to achieve. And in this case, absolutely did not do that. You know what? She's a wife and she's an adult. She said, look, we're either going to take women super seriously and have fights over toothbrushes, or we're going to treat them not as seriously and then just plan for it. You got to pick a lane. And I'm telling you, this lane, not as happy as the one you could have. Not the lane with frame. Okay, so we jump to the part where Jack's talking about the line where, you think you're my dad? You can't talk to me that way. I suspect she has a good relationship with her father. And he's like an old school, what you would call a red-pilled man. And if I'm right, this means that she's taking your tone as condescending because they are threats from someone that thinks they're an authority figure, despite not previously playing competence at such. This one here, you've seen my post on power games. And I always suggest when you take an engagement with somebody, put it on a 2-axis chart, just mentally. You don't have to draw it out because you're not an autist, where it's status and harmony. Who considers who more important status-wise, and is it a for each other or against each other argument? And in this case, condescending is always seen as somebody who's on your team, but considers themselves above you. So you act condescending to the other person, and they should generally act submissive backwards. That's a good place to be. The problem is, she doesn't believe that she's in that submissive quadrant. She thinks he's being condescending, but he doesn't deserve it. So what does she do? She goes over to the other side of things, where she's acting against his team and higher status. And now you have two A-type personalities butting heads. Now, this is not a sustainable engagement. Now, the general idea is you should just disengage from it. But the approach to this isn't then just to continue to butt heads like this. You got to find some way around that engagement to get the other person in a submissive state where they're on your same team and they defer to your status. And in this case, literally putting in the work is the only way to get there. 100% consistency, 100% leadership, trust, but not talking. Talking will never get there. So he continues on, like, well, it seems like you escalate situations without really having the leadership credibility to do so. Imagine you and your wife are playing Monopoly. She's the banker and everything's starting, giving everybody their money, but she's being slow about it. And so you say, it's not necessary to count on everything so slowly. And she says, okay, you do it. So now you're the banker. You count on everybody's money. You start the game. Somebody realizes they don't have enough $5 bills. Your wife sneers and says, must have been a mistake by the banker. You say if she doesn't stop talking this way, you're going to flip over the board and walk out so she can play by herself. Do you see how stupid it sounds now? So who's right? Literally nobody. That's the point of this. Your wife has a lot of bottled up resentment for your career decisions. You have a lot of bottled up resentment over her acting like a bitch. And then you get arguments like these. I think your marriage can be salvaged, but you need a way less confrontational approach. Your wife thinks she's been married to a man-child, and until you establish that you're not a man-child, she will continue to feel this way. In the meantime, when you get a shit test, don't think about how to win, think about how to lead. You don't convince her of anything, but you can just state your orders in a way that acknowledges her feelings and offers contingencies if you're wrong. Nuking these things isn't bullying unless you only handle them by bullying, or by nuking, sorry. It gets annoying really quickly. You're just the guy who keeps flipping over the Monopoly board, and this behavior will not work as the negative reinforcement for her to be less bitchy. It'll just piss her off, and you'll have to resort to these measures to get the upper hand in disagreements. So be a leader, be her leader, and that's how you take control. Final thoughts on this. I think a lot of guys, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme for the next couple episodes, where they've been in lives of quiet desperation for so long that once they're given the promise, not even the guarantee, the promise of being that top tier guy and the girl's going to defer to you and the sex life's going to be fun, and they instantly think like that'll teach that bitch a lesson. Oh, I'm going to teach her good. And then they turn this thing into a battleground, which is weird. Like, it's a wife. You don't really need, she's not your arch nemesis. She's like a 120-pound girl. Like, what are you going to do? Body slam her? It's like, you'll win. If you guys get physical, you'll win. If she wants to divorce rape you, she'll win. But it's like, why are you fighting? You're supposed to be on the same team. And if you're not on the same team, why the hell are you there? Why are you even trying this stuff? Why are you not just divorcing? Well, I want to tuck my kids in. Well, yeah, but your kids want a good father. We don't get what we want. Just keep this in mind. A lot of the times... Actually, you know what? I'll just end this on a saying because I could ramble about this forever. Do you want to win or do you want to be happy? Enjoy yourselves. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.